Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today. So I am honored to have Maulet Sabanshi here today. So he is a CPA for Canada. He do taxes for Canada, and uh, I think I'm gonna ask him to introduce himself. So for him to give us detail for who he really is. So good afternoon, Maulet.
Good afternoon. Uh, Thank you very much for having me, Cheryl. It's a pleasure to be on your channel.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a CPA. I've been CPA in Canada since 2013, and I've been helping Amazon sellers in other provinces as well, not just in British Columbia. And I focus on Amazon sellers. I try to, I read through their reports, Amazon Central seller reports, PayPal, OFX, currency conversions, you name it. So, I've been specializing for 4 years on the e-commerce business. I also specialize on real estate businesses as well, trust accounting, etc. So, yeah, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. So before we start, so you mentioned that you're from British Columbia, actually, right? So what provinces do you cover? Because I know, like for example, with Carmela Perillo, like one of the CPA for Amazon, I think she doesn't cover Quebec, right? So what are the provinces that you can do taxes?
Right. Unfortunately, I also don't do Quebec because it's in French language, which I still need to learn. But I do, I have clients in other provinces, in Alberta, in Ontario, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So most provinces except for
Quebec.
Quebec, right? So okay. So that's good to know because there's so many, like for example, I have students everywhere, and some students they're more comfortable finding, like even if I recommend my accountant here in Ontario, they also want somebody who are in their province, right? So for those of you who are in BC, so Maulet here is from BC, so it's really good for you to have contact with him if you're more interested in finding a local one, right? Okay, so the way we're gonna do this interview is I'm dividing it into several parts because major parts like focusing more on a lot of questions that I usually come across with for a new Amazon seller, right? So the first thing we're gonna do is like talking about opening the business. So sole proprietor versus corporation. So my first question for you, Malet, is that what are the key differences between operating a sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation here in Canada?
Yeah, of course. So sole proprietorship, you open sole proprietorship as a business owner, and this is the simplest form of business entity. Generally speaking, sole proprietor means that you are the business. All the business income and expenses are reported on your personal tax return. Personal tax return is called T1 form, and then there's addition to the form is called T2125, where you report your income and expenses from the business, and then you take the net profit from that form and then report it on your personal tax return. So with the sole proprietorship, you and your business are not separated. You're one. So it means that any losses and debts of your business, are your responsibility. So that's what the sole proprietorship means. For the partnership, now if we talk about general partnership, it's a flow-through entity. It means that partnership itself doesn't report any income and doesn't pay income taxes. Those things, business income and taxable income flows through the owners of partnership. Now, what the partnership is, let's say two people decide to open up a business together, two or more people, so they can form a partnership. Partnership means that, the partnership will conduct the business, generate income, pay expenses, etc. But when the time comes for the income tax filing, all this, taxable income will flow through the partners, and then the individual partners will report the income on their T1 income tax returns. So that's what the partnership is. And the corporation is a separate entity. It's a whole separate entity. It has its own income and expenses and liabilities and debts. And you, as an owner or shareholder of the corporation, you are separated from the corporation. So it means that in most cases, you will not be liable, for the debts, losses, and contracts of the corporation. So that's in the national, yeah.
Thank you so much. So just to be clear, right? So because I think I saw in one of the posts, they're asking if like, um, do they need to if they have a sole proprietorship, do they separate the income from the sole proprietorship business to their personal income tax? So you just confirm right now that you don't really need to, right? So basically you combine both your personal income and your business income if it's in sole proprietorship, right? So at the end of the day, you are responsible for all the taxes that the business incurred.
That's correct. Yeah, but the only difference is that in the sole proprietorship, the business income and expenses are reported on Form T2125, and then from there you take the net income and you report it on your personal income tax return.
Okay. So thank you for clarifying that. So with the partnership, so if like for example, some of my students, they're a couple, right? So they're asking me, okay, Cheryl, should we do partnership? So I want my husband to be with me. Can they do that? Is it an advantage to do like a partnership when, husband and wife wants to be in the business?
Yes, that's a possibility. So rather than opening a corporation, because corporation will be a little bit more costly to open and also to conduct business as a corporation, they can open a partnership together. Let's say 50% belongs to husband and 50% belongs to wife, and they work in the business together. Then at the end of the year, 50% of the net taxable income will be passed through to both spouses each.
Okay, thank you so much. So that's clear to me because a lot of times they ask me that, and with the corporation, so basically it's separate. So if for a new seller in Canada, right? So with me personally, I know that it's not required to open a business, right? When you are selling on Amazon, you can sell as an individual, not professional. But for me, because my students, whenever my students sign up with me, um, I always tell them that since you spend money on buying the course, might as well make it, you need to have basically a long-term plan, not to think of it as just a trial to see if it will work or not, but to be serious with it, register it as a business. So I always recommend to them to register it as a business. So basically, for a newbie, who are just starting, what would you recommend? Do you think they should go for sole proprietor or right away corporation?
So, I would open the business initially as sole proprietorship because the costs are very low. Startup costs are low. You can register it online, and then you can obtain the business number and GST, everything online. I think it costs like less than $40 to register your sole proprietorship, and then you can start. But once your income grows and net profit generates, considerable amount, then it would be time to open the corporation. I think, I read through the questions. The further question talk about advantages and disadvantages of having corporation versus sole proprietorship. So we'll cover it in further steps, but this is what I would generally recommend. Don't open it initially, the corporation and then once your business grows enough, then you can open the corporation.
Would you say at least for the first year, do sole proprietorship first to make sure that the business is growing, and then transfer to corporations once you see that there's actually income coming in, right?
Yes, like considerable income is coming, and then you can, because the benefit of having a corporation is that the income is taxed at lower rates, and then you can preserve the capital within corporations. So if you don't withdraw funds from corporations, then they're not taxed in your hands. So that's the biggest advantage of corporation. And also the legal liability. So unless unless your business generates considerable income, there is no point in opening corporation, in my view. But of course, there are other considerations such as limited liabilities. So for the corporation, the liabilities of corporations do not transfer to you in most cases. So if you want to, protect yourself, your personal assets from claims towards the business, then maybe opening corporation is a way for you to go. So there are, considerations, not just from the accounting perspective and taxes perspective, but also from the legal perspective.
Okay, so since we're talking about corporations, so you already mentioned a bit of different advantages of a corporation, right? So number one is one of the advantages that lower taxes, right? At the end of the day, so if you are making enough money and you don't want to mix it with your personal, because if it's in personal, so for example, you're already making 100K in your regular job, and then you end up making, let's say, 50,000 at the end of the year, that's 150, then the more taxes you will incur for your personal along with the sole proprietorship. But if you separate them, the 50,000 will be taxed differently because it's a corporation, right? So that's one of the advantage. And then you said also it helps you with protecting your assets. Is there any other advantage that you want to share for having a corporation?
For having corporation, yes. So corporation, you can accumulate wealth, as I said, within the corporation, because like I said, if you don't withdraw funds, then they're not taxed in your hands, and then you can accumulate. And also, the corporation can be sold. So, for example, if you want to exit your business, you can easily sell the shares in the corporation, and the corporation can also be passed on to your beneficiaries. So, if the shareholder dies, corporation still exists, and it can
Wow.
be transferred to the beneficiaries, to children, or to spouses. So this could be a part of your estate planning. And then it's easier to raise capital with the corporation from the banks. And then, as I said, corporations are taxed at lower rate, because in your example, if you're earning, let's say you're working full time somewhere, and your salary, you get a salary of, let's say, $100,000 for simplicity's sake, and then you generate another $100,000 from the business, then that's $200,000 will be taxed at your marginal rate. But with the corporation, you can leave that $100,000 within the corporation, and it will not be taxed in your hand. Corporation will pay the tax, but at a lower rate. So, you can save a little bit taxes that way.
Yeah. So what is the lowest rate for corporation? Like, what is, like, let's say, um, you're making like really high income, right? Like 100,000. What do you have a number that you can give us just for the audience to know, like, what's the difference between a personal income and a rate for corporation?
Yeah. So, if you look at, we have two tiers of taxation for income taxes. One tier is federal tax, which is taxed by the federal, and also on the provincial level. So the corporation, if you apply the small business deduction, federal abates, then your effective tax rate can be as low as 9%. And then in addition to that, you get provincial tax, which can be somewhere around 2%. So that's about, 11%.
11.
But with the marginal tax rate, if you get $100,000, of course, there will be deductions, for your personal deduction, and also like tax credits. And maybe if you contributed something to your RSP, then you can deduct that. And I think the effective tax rate could be somewhere in the area of 14 or 15%.
As compared to that. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really a big difference, right? So so how about a disadvantage? What are the disadvantage of opening a corporation? Like right, I guess right away, like what's the disadvantage of opening a corporation?
It's a little bit more costly because you have to pay maybe legal fees to set up the corporation. Bookkeeping and accounting fees are also consideration because it takes a little bit more work to maintain bookkeeping for corporation and also to file taxes. And then there are paperwork involved. You have to keep minutes, directors' decisions, minutes, you know, um, all those papers. And then you also have to file um, corporate return in your province as well. So those kind of things.
Yeah, that's something that I learned. Recently I opened a corporation with owner. So basically, this is a company that I used to open my corporation for my coaching business, and it made it so easy for me because everything that you need is already there with just few clicks. So if you are interested, I'm gonna actually put the link below. So if you want to file for a corporation the easy way, so that's the one that I used, and for me that was really easy, and all the paperwork you need is already there. Okay, so um what are the legal liabilities associated with the different types of business structures in Canada?
Yeah. So we touched a little bit about that, in previous question. But again, for the sole proprietorship, you are the business. You're not separated from your business. So whatever your business incurs in terms of losses or debts or contract obligations, those are your personal, obligations and responsibility. With the partnership, it's the same thing. With the difference is that whatever your partners does, without you knowing it, it also becomes your liability. So Cheryl, for example, you and I, we decide to set up a partnership. We run a business, and then if I go and sign some contracts on behalf of the partnership, and you don't know about it, you're still responsible for the contract. If I get hit by a bus, it's your liability. So that's the disadvantage of having a partnership. And with the corporation, corporate entity is a separate entity from you, and all the debts, contracts, and obligations are incurred by the corporation, not by you.
So that's good to know. Okay, so what are the key accounting and tax obligations for a new Amazon business owner in Canada? So I think this is a good question because many people are not aware of this.
Yeah. So the tax obligations, you will have to pay income tax at year end. So be it sole proprietorship or corporation. So if it's a corporation, then corporation has to file its own tax return and pay tax on that. So that's income tax. And then if you hire any employees, then there'll be payroll taxes and CPP and EI. If you pay to your employees, then you have to deduct income tax, remit to the Canada Service, and also you have to deduct Canada Pension Plan and employee insurance. So those are the taxes. And obviously GST and HST taxes, when you sell on Amazon to buyers in Canada, then you're supposed to collect GST or HST depending on the province, and you have to remit it to the CRA. And PST tax obligations might also be there depending on your province and where you register. You might have to collect PST and remit it to the relevant province.
Okay, so that's good to know. So I have a question though. So for example, someone like started the Amazon business, and then they registered it as a sole proprietor, but then they didn't really follow through, and they just made let's for example, let's say like 5,000 or like $2,000 at the end of the year. So basically, it's almost like a hobby. They just tried it and didn't work out. So, do they still need to file taxes on that? Like, do they, as an income, like, are they required to still file taxes on that?
Yes, if they earned anything in Canada or overseas, they must report it on their tax return. Yeah, even
So
if it's
they,
$2,000, they have to declare. Now they don't. Maybe they will not have to pay taxes on that $2,000, but they still need to report it.
you still need to report. So that's the reason why I think it's very important for new Amazon seller to register first as a sole proprietor to be sure that it's like your income is increasing, and then when you see that okay, I will actually continue this and it's doing well. That's the time that you do corporation for you to, because it's more expensive actually to do taxes for corporation as compared to sole proprietorship, right?
Right. Correct.
So that's good. So you also mentioned about GST and HST. So one of the things that we need to, like, new sellers should know that we are required to apply for GST, HST after we make a worldly income of $30,000 everywhere, like, right? So if you decided to sell, like, for example, us as a Canadian seller, we are also allowed to sell before, like, in my account only like US and Mexico, but I think the new account now they're even allowed to sell in UK, Japan, and there's so many other places that you can sell. So if you make 30,000 above, say, in sales, right? You are required to already register, right?
Mm.
So, as an Amazon seller, are there specific sales tax consideration that they need to be aware of? Can you tell us the advantage and disadvantage of opening a quarterly or annual sales tax remittance? So, um, aside from that they need, they it is a must for them to apply already by the time that they're gonna be 30,000. What other things that they need to make sure they know about GST, HST?
Yes. So I always recommend to my clients not to wait until they reach that threshold of $30,000 and go ahead and register for GST and HST, because once they register, they can claim the taxes that they paid uh, when they even started their business. So, for example, if you buy office furniture for your business, and you're going to Walmart or Costco to buy some merchandise to sell on Amazon, you pay GST or HST depending on your province, right? So if you register for the GST and PST with the CRA, then you can actually claim back those taxes. So that's a benefit to you. But if you will be selling, then it's the buyer who will be paying for the GST and HST. So there's actually no reason for you not to register for GST and HST, even if you just started your business without waiting for the 30,000 threshold.
That's something that we need to make it clear, because I think there's more advantage in actually applying earlier than later, right? Because for example, for us Amazon seller, so we usually, so what I'm teaching is arbitrage, right? So arbitrage means just buying in not just wholesale but actually in big box stores like Walmart, Canadian Tire, and stuff. So when we buy on those store, and even for wholesale, when you buy, you actually need to pay the uh GST, HST, right? So depending on the province, you actually pay for it upfront. So if you don't have a GST, HST number, that's considered as part of your expense. But if you have the GST number, even before you hit 30,000, all those 13%, like for example here in Ontario, 13%, you actually get it back, right?
That's
So that's a really good advantage, and I think for me I would really recommend it. But you know how when you're applying, they all usually say, like, I think they get intimidated because they say they usually have the question, oh, did you already make $30,000, that's why you're
yeah.
applying. So how do they deal with that? Like, they can just tell CRA, like, I want to get it anyways, even if I didn't make 30,000. They just tell that uh the customer service that they really just want to get it.
Yes, yeah. So it's called the voluntarily registration. So they just, if they're speaking to a live agent from CRA, they can say, I want to register voluntarily, which is allowed. Or if you're doing online, then I believe there's a box that you can click for the voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
If you indicate that your sales are less than $30,000, but you still want to register, that's fine. They will accept it and they will register you.
Okay, so good to know. So there's different way to file the GST, right? Either quarterly or annually.
Yeah.
So what is the advantage and disadvantage of that? Because for me, I did first quarterly and then I changed to yearly. So for
Right.
me, it's because it's a lot of work. So for like in your perspective, what's the advantage and disadvantages of doing it quarterly or yearly?
Yes. Yeah. So for the disadvantages, you already mentioned, Cheryl, it's a little bit more work, paperwork and bookkeeping and then filing. You have to do the job quarterly. But for the advantages, it depends on if you're net payer or net receiver of GST and HST, and I'll explain to you. So when you sell something on Amazon, your buyer pays HST or GST to you, and you collect it. So, for example, let's suppose you accumulated $5,000 in GST, right? So this is something that you have to remit to CRA. And at the same time, you went to Walmart and other stores and you bought merchandise for your business. I mean, for sale on Amazon, and you paid in HST and GST in the amount of $3,000. So you you collected 5,000 and you paid 3,000. Net is 2,000. You're net payer, right? In this case, it's better to file annually because you don't have to pay that $2,000 until the year end. But let's take another example. And some of my clients are net receivers of GST. So in our example, they collected $5,000 in Canada. The rest of the sales are in the USA, but they paid actually $10,000 of GST and HST in Canada. So the difference is $5,000 they will receive back from Amazon. From the CRA. So for them, it's beneficial to file it quarterly. So then they will get, in this example, $5,000 every quarter in HST and GST credits from the CRA, and they don't have to wait for the year end to receive it. So it's good for their cash flow.
Yeah. So with me personally, I also sell in the US and I have like a lot of inventory I buy a lot also in the US that I get really big amount of refund, GST refund at the end of the year. And whenever I get that, it's like a really big boost to my business again, right? So the only thing is that I don't have time to do everything like at once. So for me, I file yearly, but I think if you are really good in your bookkeeping and you have all the time to do it or you have help to do it, I think it's better to file quarterly, especially if you are selling in the US because you are in the refund side of in terms of money, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So aside so those are those questions. So aside from that, let's also talk about a business bank account, right? So is it a must to get a business bank account? This is a usual question that I always get. Or can they just use their personal account whenever they open a business? So let's say sole proprietorship. Do they need to open a business account, or is it okay to just have, like, for example, a checking account that they're not using but personal?
Yeah. So, they should have a separate account for the business. It doesn't have to be called business account because I know some of the banks offer you to open a business checking account. It can be a personal checking account, but the important thing is that you shouldn't mix business and personal funds in one account. So, you can open a second checking account with a bank and dedicate it solely for business. Because what happens is if CRA audits you, they will ask for the statements of bank accounts from you. And then if you provide to them your statements with your personal items on it, then, the CRA will see them and then, they may have questions. Is this personal expense or was it business? And then you have to, it's not a good practice. So I always advise not to mix, not to commingle personal and business funds in one account. You should have
Yeah.
separate accounts. And also the same goes for the credit cards. If you use frequently, a lot of Amazon sellers use their credit cards to get points, which is a valid reason. But you should you should dedicate your separate credit cards for business only, and not use them for your personal expenses.
So that's a very good idea. So even like we are actually allowed to use a personal credit card. Like for example, you open one for Walmart or you open one for Canadian Tire, but make sure that once you use it for the business, never ever use it anymore for personal, because that's what Maulet said here, that it can get messy and it's harder for you, even for bookkeeping, right? Just to get tracked. I think you're gonna pay more in bookkeeping just because you mix up all these personal charges from business charges, right?
Yes, and there is also one disadvantage of using business accounts for personal use, especially if we're talking about corporation share, and many business owners do not realize it. So, for example, if you're using your business bank accounts or credit card accounts for personal use, then in the eyes of CRA, that's considered to be withdrawal from your corporation. And then once you have a withdrawal from corporation, it can be adherent. It can become a taxable income to you, which you didn't expect, right? So that's just one of the warnings that I wanted to make, that don't use your business bank accounts for personal expenses.
That's a very good idea.
At the same time, Cheryl, we didn't cover all the. I just wanted to make a few points about the GST and HST. So once Amazon seller registered for GST and HST, once they obtain the number, they should set it up on your Amazon Central. Because what happens is, if you do not set up your GST and HST on Amazon Central, then Amazon will keep collecting the GST and HST from your buyers and remitting them to the CRA, but not on your behalf. So it's better to register your GST and HST on Amazon Central once you have it. And also the other thing is, if you're selling in the US and Mexico, Amazon charges you fees for the warehouse transactional fees, referral fees, etc. So even Amazon US and Mexico will charge you GST and HST. Now, most of the GST and HST you can claim from the CRA, but not from these two entities. And many entrepreneurs unfortunately do not know about this, because USA and Mexico Amazons, they are registered what is called simplified system with the CRA, where they are supposed to collect GST and HST from you and remit to the CRA, but you cannot claim those from this CRA. Those are just the rules. So
that's good that you mentioned it. I have a question, because a lot of sellers, they forgot that they already made $30,000, right? And they say either A, they forgot to get the GST, HST, or B, they got it, but they didn't input it in the Seller Central account.
Yeah.
Now, the bad thing of not putting it in the Seller Central account is that because you already have the GST number and you make $30,000, we are liable actually to already start collecting, right?
Yeah.
So what happens to them? Like, for example, it's late, so they register 2 weeks ago, and then they forgot it, and they only remember to input it in their Seller Central after a month of registration. What will happen to them? Like, what are the consequences?
Yeah, so if they get audited, then obviously the CRA agent will ask you, what happened to this GST and HST. You just need to pull the transactional reports from Amazon Central and figure out what happened to the GST and HST that Amazon collected. If it ended up being transferred into the CRA, then you just need to show the transactions to the CRA agent explain to them what happened, that Amazon collected on your behalf, and not on your behalf because they are obligated to collect anyway and remit to the CRA. Right. So, but it's always better to register right away, because, to avoid those kind of conversations and the necessity for you to prove that Amazon collected and remitted, it's better to do it right now, immediately.
Okay, because also I would add that really it is a must for you to input the GST HST number once you register, because you are liable for collection already as soon as you registered, right? Because
Right.
some people, they say, oh, like, isn't it Amazon actually collecting for us? But the fact that you already have a GST HST number, you are actually responsible for collecting it already. So as soon as you input it in the Seller Central account, Amazon will start giving it back to you, and you are responsible for remitting it to the government, right?
Right. Yeah. So here I just wanted to make one note, because some Amazon sellers do not, go through the transactional reports from Amazon Central. What happens is, if you pull what's called the summary report from Amazon, it shows it, on the right lower bottom corner, there's a section called taxes. And this tax includes HST and GST, but also PST from different provinces. It may include PST as well. Now, if you remit the whole thing to the CRA as HST, that will be a mistake, because not all of it is GST and HST. Some of it could belong to the provinces. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to pull the transactional report and try to disentangle what this tax, total tax amount consists of. If so 5% would be for BC, 13% for Ontario, and if they're selling in Saskatchewan, they could be PST involved. So they need to disentangle that number before they file their tax returns and remit anything to the CRA or provincial government.
Okay, so I have a question then. So, for example, with me, I'm from Ontario. I have GST, HST, right?
Yeah.
Do I need to get a PST number as well?
No, in Ontario, you don't have a PST. So if you're registered for GST, that's enough.
That's enough, right?
Somebody in British Columbia or Saskatchewan may have to, register the provinces. But if you're selling in, if you're selling in Ontario, you don't have to register. But if you are selling in British Columbia, you may have to register. But if you do not, then Amazon will collect and remit on your behalf.
Okay, so that's good to know. Okay, so I have other few questions. So we tackle already like the most important part for a lot of newbies out there who's wanting to sell and doesn't have an idea yet on how it works. So there's a few questions that I have that, here and there. One is like, how should I set up my business accounting to ensure it is organized and compliant from the start? Because when you're new in Amazon selling, like a lot of times you don't know what to really do. Like, do I open right away, like, for example, a QuickBooks, or should like an Excel sheet would be enough? What should I do to get organized and compliant?
Yeah. So from day one, you should start collecting receipts and invoices and business contracts, etc. that will support your deductions and expenses, business expenses. So you should collect them and keep them in some shoebox, etc. And then you can start doing you can hire a bookkeeper, maybe not right away, but after you sell for a few months and you see your Amazon sales are generating some transactions, then you need to find a bookkeeper, who can help you to do your bookkeeping, because good bookkeeping is key in order to file the taxes at year end. You can start maybe doing an Excel spreadsheet, but if you have a corporation, then I always recommend not to use Excel spreadsheet for corporations, because With corporations, what happens is you need to report to the CRA not just your income and expenses, but also your business assets and liabilities, right? So, it could be inventory, um, cash in the bank accounts, furniture, equipment, etc. So you have to, report that in the balance sheet and income statement report to the CRA. Now, with the Excel spreadsheet, you can still do it, but as you know, Excel is error prone. If you mix or confuse one formula in one cell, then it can, confuse the whole picture. So that's why I'm saying that, if you are just starting as a sole proprietor, you can use Excel spreadsheet, but once you grow, you need to switch. You need to start using accounting software such as QuickBooks Online. But if you're a corporation, then you need to think about using it right away.
Okay, so perfect. So I think so for me personally, I use QuickBook. And when I was in sole proprietor, I just have the regular worksheet because it's not too complicated yet, right? But I think that's a good advice. Okay, so what expenses can I deduct from the income Amazon to reduce my taxable income? This is a usual question that they have, like actually to follow up with this question, because I also have someone who asked me about this. What are, like, for example, where is that question? Because I saw it, maybe I can combine it with this question. So can I claim a tuition fee in my sole proprietorship? Can I include my donation receipts in my sole proprietorship? Can we claim like the payment for the courses that they got from me for the sole proprietorship? With my business expense, example, credit card, should I pay it through my business account? What if my money will come from my other account? Does it matter? So let's just talk first about what are the charges that they can possibly charge to. I guess usually it's personal. A lot of the personal expense that we usually have. What are the ones that allowed to be charged to the business as well?
Yeah, so you can deduct all the reasonable expenses that are related to doing your business. So it can be, if you buy something, for resale on Amazon, some merchandise, then you can deduct that. Storage costs, transportation, and delivery costs, etc. So those are related to your merchandise handling. You can deduct software if you're subscribed to Keepa or other software. You can deduct those expenses. Legal accounting fees, business courses you can deduct if this is related to doing business. Bank fees, personal vehicles. If you use your vehicle to go and shop to buy something from Walmart or Costco, wherever, you can deduct the travel expenses. But for business, for the vehicle expenses, you need to maintain mileage book. The mileage book that CRA almost always check. The mileage book should say, from where you went, like let's say from your home to Walmart, date, mileage, how many kilometers you drove, what was the purpose, it can be, to purchase, look for merchandise and buy it. So those kind of expenses you can deduct. Many people don't know that you can deduct home office expenses. You need to, so for example, if you use one of the bedrooms in your home as a home office, then that would be your main office. And then you need to calculate the square footage of your office as compared to your whole house or apartment. And then you can prorate and deduct expenses related to your home. Those expenses can be, rent or mortgage expenses. Mortgage interest expenses, utilities, gas, water, trash removal, maybe, internet, if you're using it for business, like 50% or 30%, you can deduct that. So all those expenses you can deduct. Yeah. For the donation, you mentioned donation receipts. I think that should go to your personal tax. You don't deduct it, but you get credit for the donations.
But how about, like, for example, there's returns, a lot of returns, or like something that will expire soon, right? So for example, with me, I sell a lot of groceries, and there's times that you end up buying something that will expire, right? And
Mm.
then if you donate it, sometimes they would give you a voucher that they say you donate this much amount. Can you use that for for business or no?
Yeah, you can actually write off the perished goods as well. Yeah.
Okay. And
You can-
also, I would also add, like, for example, like also, for example, with us, we personally put, like we subscribe to Ring, like those how do you call that? Like to protect the house because a lot of our stuff, like actually the whole garage is for Amazon and inside the house too. So we want to make sure that when we're away, like we can see who's going and coming in because there's still some, like, even though a lot of the products are in the warehouse, you still keep products at home. For example, those returns, things that you don't want to send yet and stuff like that, right? So also, I think I would add also when you pay, for example, Costco membership, right? So for example, for us, we use it solely for buying. Like I shop a lot in Costco, for example, right? So those membership are like I know because for me personally, I pay the highest one because I can get more benefits on that. So is that also considered as expense?
So if you use Costco membership for your personal, not just for business, then you can prorate and deduct only the purchases and membership that is
Mm-hmm.
related to the business. Now, the flip side of that, if you're getting the points, then part of the points will be your income, business income. You have to include it in your business income. So
Mm-hmm.
it works both.
So yeah, so also that, and then like for example, also for example, some people they do Instacart to buy, so especially if they're doing um like going to prep center. So some Amazon sellers they use Instacart to be able to buy from, for example, Walmart or other store going to the prep center. So membership for that is also considered as expense, right?
Yeah, if they're using their membership only for business, then yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so perfect. So um what can there's another question here. So what are there common tax credits or deduction that new e-commerce business owner often overlook? Like for example, they're not aware that it can actually be a tax credit. Like aside from the ones that we mentioned, is there anything else you would add to that?
Yeah, so many sellers um, miss the possibility to claim GST and HST paid to Amazon. There's Amazon Central. There are invoices they call Amazon seller invoices. So if you open
Oh, those fees, right?
the fees, yes. So when you pay the fees, the Amazon charges you, and then you can claim. Right. So and then home office expenses they miss, vehicle expenses. Um, what else? Yeah, and then if you take a loan, let's say even from overseas, then you can deduct the if the loan is for business purposes, then you can deduct the expenses, interest expenses for the loan. Uh, now, I just wanted to mention that if you take a loan from overseas, then you're supposed to report to the CRA. It's called, I think, NR4 form. So it's interest paid to overseas lenders. So you need to report it. Just so you know. What else? Yeah, so those are the items that I see most often missed by Amazon sellers. And also the bookkeeping, if you maintain accurate bookkeeping and make sure that you record all your expenses and not lose receipts and invoices, then you will not forget to clean those.
Perfect. So that's really good. So okay, so what records and documentation do I need to maintain for my Amazon business, and for how long should I keep those records? So that's one of the questions that I also got. Like for example, for me, I put everything already in QuickBook, right?
Mhm.
Can I already throw those receipts, or is it better for me to just still keep it for just in case, right?
Right. Yeah. So the CRA requires you to keep the receipts and invoices and all those documents for 6 years after you file your tax returns. So if you still keep your QuickBooks Online 6 years after you file tax return, even if you're out of the business, then and you can pull those documents from QuickBooks, and I guess that's not a problem. If not, then you should keep your paper or even at least digital copies of your documents.
Okay, so for me, if I have it in QuickBooks, it's also safe to let it go already because everything is there in case CRA audit me. Everything is already on that on QuickBooks.
Right. Yeah. If you can pull the documents from QuickBooks and, after six years after you file the tax return, then you should be fine.
Okay, because I that's the reason why I love QuickBook because for me I can just like so for example we go to the store you can just like click 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 and then it's done then everything but for I don't know why I'm still holding on to all the receipts. I'm just so scared to throw them just in case, but I guess it's already safe because it's already online and I don't think that QuickBook would just say okay we're gonna be like closing down, right, file bankruptcy and everything is gone. I don't think that they will do that because they're so big of a company. Hope so, right? Okay, so how should I be preparing for my annual taxes as a new Amazon seller in Canada? So what are the things? This is the most common question. So what are the things that they need to pull into Seller Central? Like what are the things that they need to give you at the end of the year?
Yeah. So first of all, I will need to look at the bookkeeping, if they did it in Excel spreadsheet or QuickBooks Online. And then the reports from Amazon Central, it's summary report where it shows your sales and expenses and also transactional reports because, we need to disentangle which sales taxes were collected and what they were remitted, GST, HST, and PST, and then Amazon seller invoices in order to claim the expenses that you paid and also the GST and HST that was charged by Amazon Central, and also the inventory valuation at year end because you need to true up your inventory asset. It will affect your cost of goods sold expense. So those kind of reports. And if you're a corporation, then obviously the corporate documents, articles of incorporation, minutes if you have, and any loans that you took out. We need to reconcile. Your bookkeeping needs to reconcile against the loan documents that you have. If you use any vehicles, then mileage book, home office expenses, the square footage of your home office and the relevant expenses, utilities, all those expenses that we talked about, maintenance, rent or mortgage expense, mortgage interest expense. Those are the documents that I require. And then, I just look at the business, and then if there are any additional documents, I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. So, is it possible for us to get like those lists like done? So maybe I can share it to the community, to my students, and to all those who are a member of my community. So for them at least to have like sort of like a list that next year they're gonna be ready. If they contact you, they have all the paper they need to be able to do it. Like maybe you can either email it to me and then I'll post it in the group, or you
Yeah.
can also post it in the group, but maybe a Word file would be better because then I can put it in the file section and the member of the group can easily find it and just download it, right? I think
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that, Cheryl. Okay, sounds
Yeah,
good.
thank you so much. So okay, they say here, if I plan to reinvest most of my profit back into the business, does that affect the best choice of business structure?
Yeah. So if you want to reinvest into a business, then the best structure would be corporation, because as we discussed before, the corporation is taxed at a lower rate, and then you can keep the wealth there, and then you can sell the corporation, or your children or beneficiaries can inherit it from you. So the corporation,
Mm-hmm.
would say, would be the best vehicle.
Okay, so that's good to know. So in terms of paying ourselves, right? So how can we pay ourselves when we have a corporation? Is it better to do salary, dividend, or a mix of both? What's your opinion on that one? Like, what are the tax implication on that? Because a lot of people are not sure on how to pay themselves when once
Yeah.
they have a corporation.
Yeah, so it depends on the goals that you have. So each situation would be different, but in general, if you pay, there are pros and cons to every option. So for the dividends, it's the cheapest way. You don't have to maintain uh, payroll processing at your corporation throughout the year. You can just issue the T5 and then you calculate the dividend and then you report it on your personal tax income. So that's for the dividends. But the drawback with the dividends is that the corporation cannot deduct the dividends paid to you as a shareholder.
Mm-hmm.
That's the drawback. With the salary, with the salary, the disadvantage of the salary option is that you need to maintain the payroll throughout the year. Obviously, it's cost and time and effort. The bookkeeper or whoever is doing your payroll would have to calculate income tax, CPP, and EI if applicable, and then remit it to Canada Service, and then. But the advantage of choosing the salary is that the corporation can deduct the salary expense from its income tax. And, salary, once you report the salary income on your T1, then you will get to accumulate RSP room if you need to save for the retirement within RSP. And then, as you know, the funds invested within RSP will grow tax-free, and then you can deduct from your personal income tax the contributions into RSP. So those are the advantage of the salary option.
Okay, so that's a good explanation because at the end of the day, really it depends on your plan. So I guess if you want to have more, if you still want to contribute with your CPP and you want to have more RSP and stuff like that, it's better to just have salary, right? So at least
Yes.
it's still being contributed. But if you don't want that, then I think uh, dividend would be good. But would you say, like, for example, I'm only 44. Is it better for me to still, like, instead of getting dividend, it's better to still contribute, like, do it as a salary, some of it, in order for me to be able to maximize my pension later on?
Yes, yeah. So you can pay part of the withdrawal from corporation as a salary for sure. Yeah.
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 I have questions here from Maulet, so at least we can maximize his time. Okay, so I'm done with my personal questions that a lot of that I encounter a lot. So this time I'm gonna ask you questions that I saw from the post. So since I posted that you're gonna have an interview with me, like I asked my audience and my community to if they can ask questions, so at least we can maximize your time with us.
Yeah.
So one of the question is that how does it work when Amazon collects sales tax and remitted on marketplace tax collection orders? Do they pay the tax to the government or do I still have to? Thanks. So I think I'm not sure if I think it has something to do with that they're remitting it. I think do you want to explain? I think it depends on if you registered your GST HST number, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. If you register, then Amazon would collect the GST and HST and pay it to you, and then it's your obligation to remit it. But as I mentioned previously, you really have to go through your Amazon transactional report and decipher, what kind of taxes Amazon collected, and if they were remitted by Amazon, or you have, or they were paid to you, and then you have to remit them. So the short answer is ask your bookkeeper, or if you're doing it yourself, go through your Amazon central transactional report and see there.
Okay, so I think that's good to know. So before I continue, I just wanna make sure because a lot of people will watch this or watch the replay. For those of you who have a question regarding U.S. taxes, like those who are selling in the U.S., just to let you know, I'm not gonna ask Molet about that because Molet only covers Canada and he doesn't have um, he's not a cross-border CPA. So for that, either A, go to my YouTube channel and watch the video from Muhammad Akif or contact him directly for your questions. I don't know if he answered directly by like without a fee. I'm not sure. But basically, if you are selling in the States, I won't be asking those US questions. Okay. So let's continue, Malet, with the questions of my students. So he said, okay, I have set up a corporation. What are the options for paying myself? I already asked you with that. So either salary or um, dividend, right? And Monet already explained that to you. And here it says here, hi, I did investment of 250 Canadian in buying unit of 3 products for online arbitrage in Canada. All units have sold. I need to ask, how can I see the total amount of tax that I will file? Which documents in Seller Central are required to see for this purpose? Please share video links. Thanks a lot. So, first thing first, I think if you never registered for GST HST and you didn't input it into your Seller Central, you don't need to worry about it because Amazon will collect for you and they will file it for you. But if you have GST HST number, Molet, what will happen? Where can they find this information?
Yeah, so again, they have to go through the Amazon transactional report and see what kind of taxes were deducted from each buyer in which province, and then calculate HST or GST and also PST if applicable. And you can that way you can decipher which taxes you are liable to pay, if any. And as for the income tax, then it depends. You still have to report if you're sole proprietor or corporation. You still have to report $250 on your income tax. I assume that whoever asked this question, they meant that they have a sole proprietorship, so you need to report it, and then whether or not they will have to pay tax on this small amount depends on if they have other income. If they have income from from the employment, then this $250 or whatever amount is will just be added into that account to that amount. But then you need to deduct the expenses. So in this example, if you spend some money to buy these items that you sold, 3 products, then that will be deducted, and then the net income will be added into your overall income on your personal tax return.
Okay, so thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so there's another one. So, hi, what are the business expenses that we can charge? Oh, this is already done, but maybe we can answer this question because they say, can we charge 100% for phone and internet bills, and how much for the house rent if we can? So, can you give them an idea? Like, I don't think that you can unless they're using it for the business completely, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you're using internet for your personal use as well, then you cannot deduct 100%. You need to prorate it. Can be 30% or 20%. You need to calculate, and of course, CRA may ask you questions. So, for example, you've been using your internet and paying $50 or $100 a month. Let's say for the simplicity, you are paying $100 a month before you open the business. And after you open the business, you still paying $100. Then CRA may ask why are you claiming 50% of that if you're using 100% of it was used for personal use. So you just need to justify before the CRA. But in general, I would say you better not claim 100% of internet and phone bills on business.
So with this though, so for example, there's several like charges that like it needs to be prorated, right? Like internet bill, even the gas and stuff like that. But can they charge it into the credit card though for business? Even if it's gonna be prorated, can they at least charge it into the credit card? Because a lot of like for example, most of it they're using it for the business.
Yes, if they do that, then in the bookkeeping they need to separate the expenses that relate to business from the expenses that relate to personal. So in this example, if they pay $100 bill for internet, let's say they, only 25% of that belongs to business, then only 25% will go into the business expense account. The rest will go into shareholder loan or the personal draw account, which is where the accounts where all the non-business items go to.
Okay, so and this one is applicable for corporation, right? Or even when they're doing the sole proprietorship, they
They
still
can
need
do
to
the same
separate
thing.
everything. Okay.
Yes, yeah. And the same principle applies. They need to separate in their booking. They will have to separate, split this account into two, one business and the second part will be personal.
I guess this is where the bookkeeper comes in because
Mhm.
for me, like I'm already overwhelmed with what you're saying. Like, oh, how do I even do that? So that's the reason why I pay for bookkeeper and accountant because I don't have an idea on how to do it and I let them do it for me.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
Mhm.
Another question. He said, "Hi, I'm clueless to taxation and business operations since this is my first business in Canada. I'm trying to apply for GST, HST, but it's not easy as I thought. We need to have a BN number or business number to be able to apply for GST, HST, and that is different from. Is it different from BIN or business identification number? Hope to get clarity on it. So is BN number different from a business identification number or BIN? I
Yes.
think he's confused of that.
Yes. So these are different numbers. I think a business identification number is something that you have in Ontario for employers. The business number is something that you get from the CRA. So BIN you get from the Ontario government, and business number is something that you get from the CRA. And you can register business number from on the CRA website. And then after that, once you have business number, then you can register for GST and HST number as well.
Yeah. So actually, so the BN number, the business number, once you apply for sole proprietorship, you get that, right?
Yes.
And that's the number. And then once you apply for the GST, HST, it just adds something like RT 0001, I think, or something like that, right?
Yes. Yes. That's correct. Yeah.
But
So yeah, go ahead. When you apply for GST and HST, you just give to the CRA your business number, and then they will give you the GST HST number, which, as you said, Cheryl, is the same as business number, but with the ending.
yeah, I would suggest like if you're having a hard time, just call them because with me that's what I did. Like call CRA, they will do everything for you because that's what they're for. Like go to call them, ask the customer service. You say, oh, I have a business number already. Give your business number. They will look in the file and just say, I need GST HST number. They will do everything for you, and then they're gonna give you the number. You can ask them to email the copy, and that's it. Like that's the easiest way to do it.
Yes, yeah. Or you can do it online as well, Cheryl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
it's
do
very
it
simple.
online, but a lot of people they get intimidated online. That's why
Oh,
they
okay.
say like, I don't know, I'm not sure. So if you're not sure, for us who have an idea on how it works, I feel like it's very easy. But for those who are new and really like they get scared in every little step that they need to do. So if you feel that way, just contact CRA, call
Yes, you
CRA,
can
and they will
call.
help you.
Yes, and they're very helpful. Yes. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So, last question here, and then we have few questions. I think we're doing overtime now, but I have few more questions for you before we end this interview.
Okay.
One is for starters, small business, how to record the purchasing of inventory. Should they go straight as a cost of goods, or should we record them as inventory first, then only move to cost of goods once they are sold? To be honest, I'm not sure what this question is because I don't do bookkeeping. Are you willing to answer this or
I can answer. I think I
okay.
know. So as they said, either option is valid. You can book first into the inventory asset and then move into the cost of book solding. Cost of book sold, but it'll take a little bit more bookkeeping time and effort. what I do is I book everything into the cost of goods sold, and then at year end, I just look at the inventory valuation, and then I just pull up the inventory asset account. I debit the inventory asset and credit the cost of goods sold. That way, I get the true picture of the cost of goods sold expenses at year end. I hope that answered the question. And I
Okay,
think
so
it came from the bookkeeper, nonetheless.
I don't have anything to add because I'm not that sure. I don't do my own bookkeeping. I
Yeah, it's
pay
a
for
good
somebody,
question.
so
Yeah, thank you.
I trust you on that. So,
Yeah.
okay, another question: how to treat the expenses that Amazon charge, particular FBA fulfillment fee, referral fee, and subscription fee? Should this be part of cost of goods or operating expenses?
Yeah, I would just book it everything into the cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, so I hope that answers to your question. So before we end, there's few live questions here that I'm gonna be asking you. Let me just go back to all the questions here. Um, if you are incorporated, do you need liability insurance?
Yeah, so it's up to you if you want the to cover insurance for the corporation. Yes, it's your
Okay,
choice, but I would definitely buy liability insurance. Yeah.
buy a liability insurance. So, how to best track gas for personal as opposed to business? So, as Maulet mentioned, you need to either have a book, right, that you record manually when you go from, for example, from your house to Walmart. If you're going, then you can have that. Or, like for example, there's apps that you can use. For us specifically, we use QuickBooks. QuickBooks actually have a tracker already, and I think there's few apps. I'm not sure if you know any other app that tracks the mileage.
Yeah, there are like MileQ, and there are others. You just Google them. There are so many apps right now.
Yeah, I remember Miles IQ. We used to do that before we did the QuickBook, but now we do QuickBook. So that's how you can track it down. So should we charge that on our business credit card? Oh, this is what I think they're asking. So the gas is part of the expense that a lot of us Amazon seller do is we really use a lot of our car, right? Like because we do sourcing, especially those who do like retail arbitrage. A lot of times you're doing it. So can we charge the gas to our business credit card?
You mean the operating cost for the vehicle?
Yeah. So basically, if they're purchasing gas because they're using the vehicle
Okay,
mostly
yeah.
for arbitrage, can you use can you charge it at the business for the business credit card?
Yes, yeah. So what happens is if you're sole proprietor, then you can charge it to the business card, like business credit card. But with the corporation, you don't have to charge it into the business card, because for the corporation, what happens is you can claim the fixed CRA rate, which doesn't require you to calculate the each individual expense on fuel and maintenance, etc. But you still have to keep the mileage. So the short answer is, for corporation you don't have to, but for the sole proprietorship, yes, you can.
Okay, so good to know. Okay, so I used to do ride sharing and has GST, HST. Can that be used on my Amazon if I register as a sole proprietor? I'm not sure what ride sharing. Um, so if you I think with ride sharing, what I know is it's for work, but that's like this is your question. I don't know if you're using it ride share, meaning like there's several Amazon seller who's doing like sourcing. So let's just pretend that the question is like they do it together, and then he's charged for GST, HST for the ride share while sourcing. Can that be used on my Amazon if I registered as a sole proprietor?
Okay. So if they receive the GST and HST registration as a sole proprietor, then yes. But if
But
they
if
Mhm.
but if you're doing ride share to go to work, that's not allowed, right?
No, yeah, yeah, I'm not sure what the ride share is, but if they, the travel between commuting costs between your home and work, they're not considered to be business expenses.
I think ride share is instead of using one car, they would use one uh instead of using multiple cars, so everybody drives on their own. ride sharing means you ride on one car, you leave the car somewhere else, and then you ride on one car only, but you pay that person certain amount in order for you to
Oh, okay.
subscribe to that.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. But yeah, so if it's for work, it's not supposed to be um used or like can be used on your Amazon because that's not an Amazon expense.
Right.
So Juni also have a question. I have a GST number from another sole proprietor business. Can I use that same GST number for Amazon?
Yeah, so if it's the same business, meaning that the same sole proprietorship, then yes, you can use.
Yeah, because I have it happened to me actually. I have an old business that I end up not closing because I was advised you don't need to, but I guess my accountant didn't know that I will be opening another one. So I opened another one, a new sole proprietor, and apparently that GST is opened. So now I'm not aware that I supposed to be paying for all the GST before. I thought I'm gonna open a new GST, and what happened? I even spoke to CRA about this, and they say unfortunately because you didn't close it, so the earnings I have from the beginning of my sole proprietorship, I need to pay GST on that.
Right,
So unless you close that, then it will be still because it's a sole proprietor, right?
right. Yeah.
Okay. So another question is it recommended to input your GST HST even if you're not hitting over 30K yet? To input, I think what it means is that they have a GST HST already, and yet they didn't make 30K sales yet. Yes, you need to, right?
Yes, yeah. You already need to, once you are registered, then you are supposed to collect GST and HST from all your sales.
No
Maybe
matter
the
what.
question is about entering into the Amazon Central.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so you should enter it right away.
Yeah, so we discussed it earlier, right? Like what are the risks you're taking if you don't put the GST HST number when you're already registered, but you didn't input it in your seller central account. So
Right,
basically it's a little bit more of work for you if you get audited,
right.
right? So another question, what are the common expenses that we can deduct from our if registered as sole proprietor? We talked about that already. So another one, each month when I pull my tax reports from Amazon, there can be either 4 or 5 different ones. I usually download all reports to send my accountant, but I really don't understand which one are necessary or if some are redundant. So I think so that's for Gina. I think I'm asking Molet to if he can give us a Word file of
Mhm.
or a PDF file of the list that you actually need, maybe even include the reports that you actually need when doing taxes. So for them to have a clear idea on what to give you in case like they hire you as their accountant, so they can ready up before
Yeah.
before contacting you, right? So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, so how to claim expenses for travel if you do partly for personal, then you also did some sourcing. So how do you claim them? So for example, they went to Ontario to do some sightseeing, but at the same time they also want to do sourcing. So part of the travel will gonna be to buy as much as they can and ship to Amazon. And some people do that, right? Like for example, with me, I also do that. So if there's certain places that I go that I know I will only find this here, I would also purchase. So how do you claim the expense for the travel?
Yeah, so for the travel, whatever um, the expenses that are related to business, you can claim. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you spend most of the time, like 80% on the shopping for your business, buying the
Mm-hmm.
merchandise for the resale, then you can claim 80% of the expenses. Now there are caveats with the meal and entertainment. You can only claim 50% of the expenses for the business. So if you went to the shopping mall to buy something for Amazon, strictly for Amazon, and you ate at the a restaurant there, had a meal, then you cannot deduct 100% of the meal for your business expense. You can deduct only 50% of that.
Okay, good to know. Because some people too, right? For example, with me, I live close to the border, but some people might do like, for example, crossing to the border, go to the U.S., stay in a hotel, and then buy as much as they can, and some bring it here, and some like ship it to U.S.
Right,
And then they stay in the hotel, right? So those are considered as business expense, and
right,
they can claim that, right?
right. Yeah, you need to keep the records that it was for business. In case CRA audits you, you need to be able to prove that the business trip for the trip was for the business.
So is like, for example, receipts that you actually purchased inventory enough to prove that you actually
Sold
did
on Amazon.
business?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for
Okay.
example, you bought some items in the US and then you sold them on Amazon. You should be able to prove that, these are the same items that you sold on Amazon.
Okay. So that's good to know. Okay. So coming back to opening a business account, when you sell on Amazon.com, are you required to open a US account? Also, how do you file taxes, CRA, IRS? Okay. Kevin, Molad here is not a cross-border CPA, but I
No,
will
but
answer your, do
yeah,
you know the
Cheryl,
answer?
although I'm not a cross-border CPA, my clients do sell in the USA and
Okay.
Mexico, and I do file, you need to file the Canadian taxes, and I do that for them. So
Mm-hmm.
you selling in Canada, you can still open accounts in Mexico and the USA, and you can sell them. And then what happens is you just report the income that you receive from USA and Mexico and report on your income tax return. On your tax return or on the corporate income tax return.
Okay, so basically we don't open a corporation or LLC in the US. Instead, like we file all the income here in
In
Canada,
Canada,
right?
that's
Yeah,
correct. Yes. Mhm.
yeah. And I also learned from another cross-border CPA when I did the interview with him is that we also need to file a paper. We don't need to file taxes, but something like a paper to just let them know how much we made during the year. That's what he told me. So if Kevin, for your questions, go back to the interview with Mohammed Akif in my YouTube channel, Cheryl Marcinek YouTube, and there's a video there for this specific question. Actually, he answered it in details there. So if you can just refer to that. Another question: how much do you charge for accounting service? So we're gonna talk about this. Maybe it could be in the last one. I don't know if you wanna tell your. Maybe it's better for them to contact you in person because it
Yes.
can change, right? And then they watch this after 3 years and they're expecting the same charges. So maybe it's
Yeah.
better for them to
Yeah. It
email you
depends on the
directly.
circumstances and complexity. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I need a bookkeeper and accountant. Please recommend. So I'm going to talk about your services. So, great information, Molat. Very knowledgeable and clear answers. Thanks for sharing your time with us today. Last one, how do we reach out to avail your accounting services? Okay, so that's the last question. So, Molat, before we end, like I want you to let us know what are the services you offered. How can they reach you, right? And what are the things that you do specifically for Amazon? But before you do that, I would like to personally thank you for allowing me to um, interview you today. I think it really helped a lot of sellers for their questions that you are here today. So can you tell us about your services, please?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Again, yeah. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be in your channel, Cheryl. And thank you for this opportunity. So I'm a CPA in Vancouver, and but I have clients in other provinces of Canada as well. So for some of the clients, I do bookkeeping, and for other clients, I do I file their GST and income tax returns. And I have many clients who also sell in the USA and Mexico and even Europe. So if you do that, I can do that as well. I mean, you need to file the taxes in Canada, and then I also do the personal income taxes for your family if you need. What else? And I like helping people. So I think there are many misconceptions in the taxation world, and I just love to help people and explain to my clients what is happening with the taxes, the tax consequences. So if you have any questions, please reach me. My company name, I'm going to post on your group my contact details. My company is called Maulet Accounting CPA, and website is maulet-cpa.ca. And
Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in the description below, like for YouTube channel,
yeah,
and also for those who are going to watch this for the replay, then maybe we can post in the comments later like your full information so that at least they would get your information and they can contact you directly. I would also personally invite you, Moled, if you want to post in my group so that they can get updated. Feel free to do it. If you have any questions, so Mulat will is actually in this group, and you can just tag him if you have some questions, maybe about his service or anything that maybe he can help you with. I hope that Mulat is very much willing to help us in this group for uh tax questions as well, right?
yes, yeah, it'll be a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So also, I've heard that Molat is also doing bookkeeping, right? So bookkeeping, personal taxes, uh, specifically Amazon taxes, which is what we all need, right?
Yeah.
And if you need anything, just contact him directly. You can say, okay, I found you through Cheryl, so he knows, where you came from, and then, ask for his help. So for those who are interested on how much rate, so I will also post, his email address on this, chat so that you guys can actually contact him directly because I don't know how much he charged, but he can talk to you directly because it depends on your circumstances, right? So so again, thank you so much. Any last word? Do you have anything you want to say before we end this interview?
No, I think your group is very helpful, and yeah, if anybody has any questions, please contact me. You can direct message me or email me. So yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.